According to police stats, 35 police officers were killed on and off duty between July and September this year. An additional 19 law enforcement officers attached to national, provincial and local government forces, as well as private security firms, also died. Minister Thobakgale speaks openly about the police's right to shoot to kill, yet the killing of policemen seems to be escalating, with criminals now engaging in shootouts with police. Joining us is Lesiba Thobakgale, South African Policing Union spokesperson. Lesiba, thank you so much for your time and for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having us. Greetings to your viewers at home.
Very concerning as to the number of police that we're seeing dying at the hands of criminals. What overview can you give us in terms of how many police have died? I mean, we've said 35 between July and September, but it seems these numbers are escalating.
It is quite very sad when we look at the numbers of police killings, and even the quarter before the previous quarter, the numbers were around 36 that were killed. And as we speak now during this festive season, starting from November, we have seen an NIU member who was shot in Newzroom in KwaZulu-Natal, and also at the Pavilion Shopping Center in Devon, where Sergeant Riyad was also shot. And going to last week, there was another one in Westville Police Station in KwaZulu-Natal who was also shot whilst he was off duty. The other two, they were on duty. So those are just some of the numbers that we can just recap. But there's also high numbers of police who were murdered during those periods, or especially when we look and reflect over this year. And it means that members of the community, they would not have police officers to make sure that they are safe. Because if a police officer is killed, it means that a certain number of community members would not have anyone to look after them. And when we go back, we look at the United Nations recommended ratio that at least one police officer should be responsible for policing around 210 citizens. But the one that is being used in South Africa, one police officer happens to be responsible for around 420 citizens. But when we look at the numbers of the members of the police, which goes up to 173,000, out of that at least take 32,000 those who are doing administrative functions to give support to the police, which clearly means that the boots on the ground are really not tallying with those numbers. We looked at our populations. The SA gave us numbers clearly that our population has since went above 62 million. And when you look now at the number of police officers that we have, it remains to be a problem. So when you kill a police officer, we are reflecting on that. It means that you are leaving so many citizens in this country without having anyone to look after them. It is worrying us as the union because we have this clear campaign that says that we need to protect the protectors. Police officers are our protectors. They need to be protected by all costs. And the state should be responsible to clearly ensure that they are protected.
I just want us to touch a little later on in terms of the measures being put in place in order to protect the police. But from what you're currently seeing, what are the main contributing factors that are contributing to these brazen attacks by criminals on policemen?
When we look at the high level of criminality in the country, that is another factor. Also, the shortage of manpower, because if you have less police officers, criminals, they tend to then take advantage of such situations. Further to that, when we look at how bold the criminals happen to be, if you could really look at how now they are killing our police officers, it really means they do not have respect for the law. Because they are law enforcement officers. They do not represent themselves. They are representing the state.
But what changed? What made people move to a place where the respect for the law, respect for those in authority for the law, is simply just put out the window?
When we look at how, crime transcends within our country, when you look at the crime threats analysis and the crime patterns analysis, it will really suggest to you that in South Africa, the high levels of criminality has since risen. And it is indeed difficult for it to be put under control or to be dealt with. So the police officers are the ones who stand to be a stumbling block for criminal activities to be conducted. So in order for criminals to do as they please, they have to kill police, they tend to kill police officers. At the end of the day, our police officers happens to be sacrifices, which is not supposed to be like that. So for criminals to get their way, if police officers are standing on their way, we see them ending their lives, which is not really okay, because they are human beings. They come from families. They also, they are also members of the society.
So what measures or strategies are currently being taken or put into place in order to ensure the safety of police officers who are putting their lives on the line?
From our side as a union, we have a campaign that we call Protect the Protectors, because we have since seen over the years that the numbers of police officers keeps rising time and again who are being killed. And for us, a killing of one police officer is way too many. It's one too many. We would not even compare, say, one this year was killed, the other year. No, we cannot even make that comparison. So through that campaign, we are saying to our communities that those who are killing police officers, they live with us in our communities. They don't live in any other planet, but they live with us. So we need to expose them. That is why we are saying that we need the role of the Community Policing Forum for them to work hand in glove with the police. Because when they have committed such acts, they come back into our communities. Our communities, they happen to know about them. And further to that, through that campaign, we are making a call that the president should declare police killings as treason, so that those who are found guilty of such crimes, they should face harsher sentences, which clearly it will deter them. It will deter anyone who would think of killing a police officer. Because if they do not get harsher sentences, they can just go, they know that they will come back, and then they will continue doing the very same thing, which we are totally condemning it as the South African Policing Union.
Speaking of communities, do you feel that now there's a lack of trust from communities when it seems that criminals can take over the lives of policemen in the way that they have?
There is a trust deficit that exists between our police and our communities. And that is clearly informed by the fact that looking at our history, our history, South Africa is a violent, we have a violent history coming, informed clearly by what we've been through, apartheid and so on. And after that, there hasn't been any form of debriefing as a country to say, how do we then move forward, working hand in glove? Because remember, we had the police force. Now we have a service. So on top of that, we need the lack of community policing forum, where police and the communities are working hand in glove. That on its own, it is making, the whole disparities between the two. We need to work together so that the communities can understand how the police want to function. They can also be able to assist the police. It can even be free for them to approach the police when they need assistance. So we need to deal with a whole lot of issues to bring both the community and the police together, because the police cannot function without our communities, because they are the ones whom they are saving, and they need to make sure that there is quite a clear relationship between the two.
And of course, these very same communities are the ones that are impacted when less and less police are available on the ground for them.
Unfortunately, we cannot say it's the very same communities, but there are those criminal elements within our communities. Because when we look at in areas where our community policing forum are working hand in glove with the police, policing becomes easier. That is why we are encouraging our communities that in each and every community, no matter where it is rural, it is urban, or whatsoever, we need to have an active community policing forum. The community needs to participate in policing, so that the police, it can become easier for them to do the job. And even when we are addressing the issues of police killings, now our communities will be the one as well who are also joining us in our call and even in our campaign of Protect the Protectors, to say no, we don't want anything with our police officers, because they are here to protect us. At the end of the day, what we want to see is the communities themselves also rising up against those criminal elements to say no, you are not going to kill our police officers. You are not going to kill us even as we are the members of the community.
You made mention earlier on that the UN standards is 1 police officer to 210 people within a population, and we are currently sitting at 1 is to 420. And of course, you're not including those that are in the administration side of policing. Does this also create a lack of confidence in people wanting to join the police force?
It depends in most cases, because we also have challenges within the police. We have lost a whole lot of members. Every year, the police loses a couple of number of members, and that on its own, it also impacts on how policing should function. You could remember we had task force members, more especially in KwaZulu-Natal. We are talking about the people who are highly skilled around the world, not only in Africa, not only in South Africa, special forces that we really rely on. Majority of them, they leave to join security companies, and also it goes to our NIU members who are also specialized. It goes to our detectives, whom now it brings this gap in between. And when the subs, they are going to go and recruit and so on, you can recruit numbers, you bring numbers, but the skills and even the experience that those members have left with, it is not so easy for you to recoup them. And also the issues of austerity as well. It also plays a role, because government has its austerity policy that is out there. So even in terms of recruitment, we see the 10,000, but when we compare the 10,000 that has been recruited over the years now, it doesn't even equal to the numbers that we have lost, because around 2009, before the World Cup, we were close to 190,000. At that time, the population was a bit low. So we really need to work more on a whole lot of, from different fronts, in order to make sure that the police itself, it is capacitated. Firstly, dealing with the issue of austerity, because if safety and security itself, it is not guaranteed in a country, how will investment come into the country? How will the citizens then feel that they are safe within their own country? They cannot be held ransom within their own country. They need to be kept safe. And by so doing, we need to capacitate policing from all fronts to make sure that it is functioning clearly and keeping our police officers alive. It is important.
It certainly is a ripple-on effect. We do hope, though, that we'll see less of these killings in the new year. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope that you transition very safely into 2024.
Thank you.